Lecture 1. For the following items, you will listen to a lecture about bacteria. As you listen, mark the alternative that answers each question. Before you listen to the lecture, you will be given 1 minute to look at the questions and the alternatives.
Bacteria is the common name for a very large group of one-celled microscopic organisms that, we believe, may be the smallest, simplest, and perhaps even the very first forms of cellular life that evolved on Earth. Because they're so small, bacteria must be measured in microns. Bacteria are found almost everywhere on Earth, including all the continents, seas, and freshwater habitats, and in the tissues of both plants and animals. Well, since they're so widespread, you might ask, how do they reproduce? Okay, they grow in colonies and can reproduce quite rapidly. In fact, they can multiply by a process called fission. In fission, the cell increases in size and then splits into two parts. Okay, now, let's move on to the types of bacteria. Bacteria were virtually unknown until about 1600, when microscopes were introduced, and at that time bacteria were observed and classified into three main types, according to their shapes. And that classification hasn't really changed that much over the years. Now, this first slide is an example of the spiral-shaped bacteria called the spirilla. Spirilla look like zigzags, and they are spiral in shape. They move faster than other bacteria. They are responsible for a number of diseases in humans. Okay, the next slide is a very different shape of bacteria. They are referred to as the cocci group, and they tend to grow in clusters or chains, as in this example. This specimen is one of the common streptococci bacteria that cause sore throat. Finally, let's look at the bacilli. The bacilli are a group of bacteria that exist in the soil and air. Bacilli are largely responsible for food spoilage. As you can see, they're shaped like rods or sticks, and if you were to see them in motion, they'd be rolling or tumbling under the microscope. These are kind of a greenish blue, but some are yellow. But don't try to identify them by their color. Look at their shape. But I don't want you to get the wrong idea. It is true that some species of bacteria cause diseases, but for the most part, bacteria are not harmful. There is a lot of bacteria in this room, in fact. We all have them on us. They live harmlessly on the skin, in the mouth, and in the intestines. In fact, bacteria are very helpful to researchers because bacterial cells resemble the cells of other life forms in many ways, and when they are studied closely, they give us insight. Here at our university, too, we are currently carrying out a research project in genetics. We are studying bacteria to determine how certain characteristics are inherited, for instance. Okay, now, let me review these three types with you. Cocci are spheres, Bacilli are rods, and Spirilli are spirals. One of my students came up with a way to remember them. Just try to visualize the first letter in the name of each type. Cockeye starts with C, like the shape of a half sphere. Bacilli starts with a straight line on the B, and a rod is straight. Spirilla starts with an S, and that's a spiral shape. If it helps you, use it. In any case, although I want you to know the three major classifications, within these basic groups, there are hundreds of variations that make them difficult to identify and classify.